Sunday, great
Yep.
day, 19th of July. And here we go. Hey everybody, how are we doing? Welcome once again to another episode of The Living Room here on We Global. It's Mark and myself today. Philip, he's doing some other stuff, but he'll be back with us next week. So it's just Mark and myself. Hope you guys are having a fantastic weekend. We got an interesting conversation coming up. But first, as usual, we're just gonna have a little chat. How are we doing, Mark?
You want to run a bet that you overcooking your food? Or
Listen,
something going wrong in this kitchen?
listen. I don't know. Every week he says he's like a connoisseur, so I don't think overcooking or undercooking is in his catalog. But so he would say. I
Well,
don't know.
it would be interesting. But yeah, man, it's good. It's good. All good. Interesting week behind us. I think I probably spent this week looking forward to the summer holidays more than anything else. And it felt a little bit strange because obviously with the kids being off for so long, it was like, well, what is summer holiday actually going to look
I
like?
was just gonna ask. You say looking
Yeah.
forward to the summer holidays. What do you mean? You taking some time off and just chilling out, or
No,
or,
I mean,
or what? Because everything is
I
blurred at
don't.
the moment.
I've been trying to work this out because it's like I feel now with work from home, you almost need more breaks. But I trying to figure out what would be the best way. Now, have the kids were obviously around for the last 3 months, and I would love to go somewhere, but I a little bit tentative because I don't really think that I really want to be too adventurous. I trying to be cautious.
Yeah, man. I think I stay put, man. A little go to the park every now and then and that kind of stuff. But by and large, I stay put. The what I see going across the world, even in Europe again, you see what's happening in Spain again, a little bit in Germany, obviously in the West in Brazil and what's not with it. Well, I don't think you would call it a second wave because to me that's now it reaching in full force over in the West. I think I just stay put for now and seeing how things go.
Yeah, I was thinking to do the same, but it's like, being in your house for so long and just seeing these four walls all the time, it's like, man, I could do with a break from this. But at the same time, I don't want to be too adventurous. I think I'm going to err on the side of caution this summer and try to do as best we can. But in talking about holidays, it was really interesting again this week to see the announcement from British Airways. I don't know if you saw that one,
Yeah,
where BA has retired all of their 747 fleet, and I was like, oh wow, you know,
yes, that's an iconic plane too.
oh absolutely,
Not just plane, but iconic in BA's colors. I think
yes,
that's
yes.
something that you're used to seeing. I mean, I know other companies had the 747, but to me, the recognizable one is when you see it in British Airways colors. That's when you kind of know, oh, 747.
Yeah, I was really fascinated that they're gonna retire it. I think 4 years early, and that really gives you an indication of how much of a downturn has really been experienced in the aviation industry, and now suddenly we're gonna lose one of the iconic airlines, well,
Here,
planes,
plane, be careful.
from not yes, trying to be cautious. One of the iconic planes from the skies, and everybody loved the 747. It's so recognizable, so iconic. So I'm really, I was looking at that and thinking, it's only last year that we were in Barbados a year ago. I mean, we didn't go on a 747, but that will be missed, I think, from across the skies of the world for sure.
But that's the thing. Even now when I'm going to the Caribbean, I still almost get slightly disappointed if the plane isn't a 747.
The 777,
Yeah, it's just in your mind. Oh, I hope it's the. I was when you were young. You say, I hope it's the upstairs plane. Because it's just you have it in your head. 747. That's the flight coming from the UK. And sometimes even now you get a little bit disappointed. But I think as you say, that's the state of where things are now. I think companies, airlines are using it to rebuild. They're probably pulling forward some decisions that they probably were gonna
for sure.
make 5, 10 years from now. But I think everything has forced us now, or forced them rather, to make those decisions now. So that's kind of where we're at the moment.
And of course, at the same time, we can't. It almost feels now you can't talk about aviation, particularly broadly, without even getting into the Caribbean aviation story in itself, because again this week, I mean, what is going on with Liat, and whether or not it's going to be a dissolution, a liquidation, a reorganization. There is so much politics being played out at the moment
Well, if you
in the Caribbean.
well, if you listen to Gaston Brown, apparently it's rising like a phoenix. But some folks are still looking on and seeing only ashes, but so they don't know what's rising. So, yeah, it's an interesting one going on there. It's interesting to see the politics at play. I think I was reading that, there's some planes there in Antigua that he's not allowing to go to Barbados when it's supposed. I think they're supposed to. I don't know what's the background as to why that's an issue, but but he's saying no, the planes aren't leaving Antigua. So it's like, what is actually going on, but some things are playing out in public, but I'm sure whatever we see in public, there's probably 10 times more that's going on behind the scenes. But we just got to wait and see what's happening there. I still think it's a sad thing to see Liat go. We can talk about mismanagement. We can talk about, losing your bags. We can talk about always late, but it's it's a Caribbean institution, and it's a shame whenever you see those things go. And to me, Liat will be one of those things that would be a shame to see if it does go.
Yeah, it would be. And, we talk about it from time to time on this show because it feels as though it is just one of those stories that is constantly rumbling along. But at the same time, it doesn't feel as though it has the right focus at the root. The people of the Caribbean, connectivity across the Caribbean, that just seems to be a little bit lost. The root and the constant headline is all about politics consistently. I mean, we get that. We understand that. Antigua is the hub. They've got 60 million EC dollars of planes sitting down there doing nothing. So I think that's part of the issue that Mr. Brown is trying to flag.
Yeah, I never really understood how it works. I never really understood how you could be an investor in something and then saddle it with taxes and barriers that you don't put external airlines at. I just don't understand it. I don't get how if you really care, how you invest in something and then put it at a disadvantage, then complain that it's hemorrhaging money, and then pretty much in a position where it seems as if they're probably looking to liquidate it and close it down completely.
Yeah.
I just never understand how that works, but
I'm sure that will rumble on, and we'll probably be talking about that again next week. But listen, I don't know if you got your mask.
I do actually. I do have my mask. Yeah, I did some school shopping yesterday, and I had my mask on, and we had to have the mask on to get the uniforms for next year. So I've got my mask, man.
Mask is mandatory from, I think it's the 25th of July in the UK in shops and supermarkets.
I think so. I think it can take some time though, because from what I see outside today and yesterday, I think folks aren't really, thinking about it that much. But yeah, I got mine in different colors, designs, as well as just the normal ones as well. So yeah, man, I good.
I would have thought you would have get one sent in from Barbados from the Alexandra School, because I see everybody doing masks from school. I would have thought that you would have had yours proud.
Well, if I could get it, I would definitely get one. So anybody from Alexandra School in Barbados, hit me up, Facebook, whatever. If you got my WhatsApp, hit me up and let me know where I could get one from. But you should know that I've been trying. You should know that I've been trying. Quick pause there. Look, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. I can see we got some of our regulars in. Thank you very much for joining us. But for anyone who's new, I see Roberto, thank you for joining us here. Always good to see you. I see Janice is there. She's saying hello, Mr. Mark Corbin. Karen, we see you. I don't know. Clearly, you're a Mr. No. I see you there, Karen Doriel. I see you there. Good evening to you. Al and Val, hello. I see you there. Blackman, I see you there as well. Marika, I see you there. Welcome, everybody. As usual, we just ask you to share, let your network know what we're doing. I think conversations across the Caribbean is a good thing. Conversations amongst ourselves and between ourselves, about ourselves, and it's us who's taking the message is a fantastic thing. So just share. Just hit share. Let it go throughout your whole network. Invite everybody to join and come into the conversation.
So listen, before we get into the conversation this evening, I like to give a little bit of an update on the veggie progress. And I noticed that you haven't asked anything this evening, but anyhow, I guess
what's filling here again. I never hear this man talk so much about food yet. It take about 8 months to transition to vegetarian. All of a sudden now there's all this man want to talk about. Carry on, buddy. Carry on.
Listen, I got a new one for you today, man.
What you got today, man?
Man, the wife put down something yesterday called a lentil steak. Man, I know. Look, I know
She eat any?
man. She playing fool, man. Anyhow, let me tell you this thing, man. This thing was awesome, right? She telling me that she's not going to reveal the recipe because it is a secret recipe. But listen, it tastes real good, and I many peas. She telling me here. But listen, you would not have felt out of place if you had it on your macaroni dung and oysters, right? It tastes that good. But anyhow, listen, things are going well.
You going good?
I going good, man.
You shedding the pongs? You shedding the pongs?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet.
No.
But it coming.
Trust me. In week 6. Week 6 is the week. I just this is week 4 now. You gonna know?
Yeah.
All right, week 6, man. Week 6. Trust me.
Well, this is week 3, so I only 50% of the way through, man. So you gotta bear with me. But anyhow, listen. Who we got in the living room today, man?
You see how quick he changed. So the man, but he's make sure he get it in, right? He's make sure no matter what he get in this food talk. But that's all right. So look. One of the things that we know has been impacted very, very, very heavily across the world with this in the COVID season has been education, and education at all levels. From the nursery all the way up to tertiary education has been impacted, whether it be, schools closing down for the last 3 months, online learning, talk about people having access to online learning, how that's impacted people, has it impacted people, and stuff like that. So we thought, why not have that conversation here on the living room as well. As usual, if you're new to the living room concept is one where, as Caribbean and West Indian people, we always have people over at our house. We go sit in the living room. We have a drink, we have a cup of tea, whatever, and we just talk about whatever the issues of the day. Invariably, the issues of the day come up, and we just bring this concept to you virtually. Mark, Philip, and myself, we always have it amongst ourselves. So we just thought, hey, why not bring that same concept here? So that's it. That's the living room. That's the concept we're having. And today we're going to talk about the COVID season and its impact on teaching and learning. So we got some really interesting people here in the living room, and it's really good. I'm really looking forward to talking to everyone. We got Anastasia, who's a Bajan living in Florida. He's an educator. We got Donna in Grenada. Hopefully we'll get Chanel as well in Trinidad. We have Wayne in St. Lucia, and then we got Andrea, who's in the UK. I'll give you 5 seconds to guess where her heritage is from when she comes on screen as well. So look, I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation. I'm looking forward to have it. As usual, we ask everyone to join in. If you've got questions you want to ask any of the guys as they're speaking about what's going on in their territory, how they're coping, anything that they're talking about, and you want to ask a question, feel free to just put it in the comments, whether you are on YouTube or whether you're on Facebook. And the good thing, if you're on YouTube as well, just cast it to your TV, or if you have a smart TV, cast it to there, and then you can just join in the conversation and do other things on your phone as well, but it'll be always on YouTube. Facebook, similar thing as well. I think you can cast it to your television as well if you're on Facebook. So it's going to be a really good conversation.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this, because I think this has been a real area of pain. I think not just for me personally, but I think for a lot of parents, a lot of teachers themselves, and a lot of people who are in education, because of the suddenness and the transitioning in this season. And I think this will be really useful to hear from the educators and to understand their journey. So I think this is one this evening that we're going to really get some fabulous insight. So I'm really looking forward to see how this conversation goes. Yeah,
and just to give the scale of it as well, UNESCO put out some numbers recently. It said 1.3 billion students worldwide has been affected by COVID-19. Wow. That's 73.8% of all enrolled students in some form of education across the globe. In Latin America and the Caribbean, it says 154 million children, or 95% of enrolled have been somehow impacted. And then in the Caribbean region alone, it's 7 million learners, across 23 countries have been impacted by COVID-19. So this is a big topic. I think everyone's been talking about it. Educators, parents have been talking it. Certainly we have on a regular basis. So I think it's a good conversation to have.
Absolutely, and I'm sure when you look at those figures, and particularly when you get into Latin America and the Caribbean, you really start to see some distinction across the territories within the various islands, and the digital divide also starts to emerge. So I'm looking forward to hearing this.
Yeah, this is gonna be good. So I'll just go ahead and bring everyone in.
Yeah. Hello, hello, and welcome. Have you got everybody?
We've got everybody. Now, Shanila will join us pretty soon. I think she's having some connectivity issues, but she'll join us pretty soon as
Okay.
well.
Andrea, just where are you from? Originally, I can see.
Oh, please.
Listen, good evening and welcome to all of you. Oh, yeah. We can see
People
it.
out there.
Is that
Hey.
broken trader?
Oh,
There you go.
Good evening.
So listen, welcome to all of you, and
Welcome,
it's
everybody.
wonderful to be able to have, the people who are at the cold face of delivering learning across various corners of the world. Let's just introduce you quickly to our audience here. So, Andrea, I know that you're an assistant head in a primary school. You just want to say briefly, introduce yourself to the audience.
Okay, I'm Andrea Welter. I'm based in the West Midlands. I've been teaching for 20 years. I know I don't look old enough.
Not
And
at all.
thank you. My specialism is religious education. And as Mark said, I'm a primary assistant head teacher.
Fabulous, fabulous. And let's go to Wayne in St. Lucia.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
pleasant
You read us, how you call it?
evening to
Ramana,
all.
I
I'm
understand.
Wayne
Have
Benti
a,
from
you
St.
could
Lucia.
sleep.
I'm a vice principal of a secondary school, and teaching and learning is my thing, especially instruction.
Okay, brilliant. And I just want to say before I introduce the next guest, right? I just want to put a little bit of a marker down because Anastasia in Florida, I just want to declare an interest here, right? Anastasia went to school with me many, many years ago. And I have given her very strict instruction this evening on this show that she is not to reveal any of my secrets when I was in school.
secrets.
Because
And there are probably many.
Please,
listen,
please, do tell.
we can
Do
have a
tell.
living room
Yeah.
show on my school days, but we're not going to go into that anyway.
You got that
Anastasia
right.
in Florida, tell us. Let's tell us briefly.
Yeah.
Like I said, Mark, if I can't tell your secrets, what am I going to talk about? I'm Anastasia Kennedy, and I'm based here in Florida. I teach in Dade County. I've been a teacher for over 20 years, and I, I specialize in reading language arts, and I'm based in elementary school.
All
Okay,
right, great.
thank you, Anne, and Donna in
And
Grenada.
Donna. Yeah.
Hi.
And I
Well,
see
I'm
you're
Donna.
outside. You're showing off on us, Donna, with this
Yes.
background. You're really showing off on us
Is that
there,
a real
man.
background? That's a real background.
Real. Hello, this is real. This is a real background. It's
This is
okay.
real.
It's so hot. It has been very hot for the last couple of days. So I just thought I was not going to stay in the house. I'm going to come outside and take in this and do this. Well,
Okay.
I'm Donna. I am Donna. I teach at the St. Joseph's Convent, St. George. It's a Catholic school run by the Sisters of Cluny, and we're one of the top schools in Grenada. We average a 96% passes in the CXC sub areas, disciplines every year, and we do our best. And I've been there for the last 8 years, almost 9 years.
Okay,
Interesting. That's really good to hear.
wow.
Yes,
Okay.
I also taught at primary school for a while, so I come with both background from education, primary and secondary.
So before we get fully into everything, I just one of the things first before we get into teaching and learning. How have you guys been doing? I know everyone talks about the parents and what they've got to do, the students and whatnot. But as educators, how have you been coping? How have you been able to get through this season? Perhaps Andrea, we start with yourself. How have you been doing throughout this season?
I've been doing okay because I spend a lot of time journaling and in prayer. as well. And I think maintaining your own well-being is really important. And I have an excellent network around me of family, friends, and colleagues as well. Plus my church family who, keep tabs on me and keep tabs on me and
Oh, so got some feedback there.
yeah.
Yeah, go
I could
ahead.
hear myself then.
No, that's good.
And then I've got quite a few of my friends are teachers as well. So then we link up with each other and look after each other. So, I think it has been a really surreal situation. And quite often I've thought to myself, is it a dream? And in the beginning, I thought I was dreaming, I was going to wake up out of the dream, and then slowly you realize actually it's reality. And the only thing I would say is that I wouldn't want to go through this situation again. I think this has been enough for everybody, really.
Yeah.
Really understand that.
Yeah. Would you say that it's been even more difficult than when the kids are there when you're at school? The breakup of the routine? What about it has made it even more so?
Definitely the routine, because I think you just take so many things for granted, and then not seeing the pupils on a regular basis, not seeing your colleagues on a regular basis. So some of my colleagues, I didn't see them probably end of March, went into lockdown. I saw some of them again for the first time last week. And it just really disorientates you as well. And then just in terms of how everything was operating with the shops, and then of course all the toilet roll saga that went on, and just things that you take for granted. Sorry to bring up the toilet roll.
No. For our listeners who may not understand, but here in the UK there was a serious shortage of toilet roll, and then it became flour. I think was one of the next things that was gone. It's just cascading as different things run out. Yeah.
Definitely. So all of that combined together just made the situation really difficult, and you really had to change your mindset, because you mentioned the online remote learning as well. So most teachers have, good levels of ICT. We had to up level to either Microsoft Teams or Zoom or Google Meet, and just seeing each other online. It's just not the same as seeing each other face to face. And then because I'm primary, you've got the children who are leaving to go to secondary school, and then you couldn't celebrate in the way in which you would normally celebrate. So that was, challenging in itself. And lots of schools put different measures into place to try and make it special for them. But it's still not the same. And then in secondary, you have the same with your year 13s that are leaving or have left as well.
So go ahead, Mark.
No, I was going to pose the same thing to Wayne. On this point of well-being, and Andrea pointed out quite interestingly there. It wasn't just a matter for her, but it was also a matter for those she managed, and also the way the teaching network. What about yourself? The whole point of well-being. How have you been looking after yourself?
You're on mute, Wayne.
Wayne?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, like Andrea, it was just, is this really happening? It's, so like I was out on a sporting expedition, and then was school is closed, and you've got to stay home, and then you have to put things in place. So it was almost like, what is going on? So it was just, you have to be quick thinking to deliver teaching and learning to the students. The other thing about it is that good networking, good family friends, like Andrea was saying, to help you move along with things that just to keep you sane, because you can't go out. Then we had curfew days. We had 2 weeks curfew. You cannot go out. So it's just strictly indoors. So what do you do? What do you eat? Well, it's almost like you pick up another hobby in terms of baking and planning things. So that's it. More or less, you just have to keep yourself sane
Yeah, yeah,
so that
yeah.
you can deliver to other persons that you're interacting with.
Wow, wow. And I would imagine that for yourself, Donna in Grenada, that it was probably very similar.
Mhm. Yes, very similar with us here because we were thrown into the deep end on in March, around the
Yes,
16th of
Yeah.
March. We were
that's right.
thrown into the deep end, and we all had to scamper as educators everywhere to figure out what was happening. Unlike the other school, like unlike Anastasia, who had a network or they had a platform, most schools, most of us, we did not have a platform. So we had to go scampering into the deep end and trying to see where we could have started out all of this.
Mm,
Myself, the thing about it with me, I have always put my students on the Edmodo platform. So they were already there. So it was
Yes.
easy for me to start communicating with my students when we were thrown into that period. But I know for my colleagues it was very difficult for some of them. They themselves had challenges because some of them had to learn either the Edmodo platform, they had to learn Google, they had to learn the Zoom. So everything was in chaos. And personally for me, well, the 2 weeks lockdown that we had and we could not have moved and curfew and so on, it was not much of a challenge for me because I love reading. So I just download all my books and stuff from Amazon and I was just having a ball of a time. Just
No,
reading.
that's
it's
interesting.
fascinating to hear how teachers were looking after themselves, because I think over the course of the whole COVID journey, this is something that oftentimes we don't hear people talk about or teachers talk about. How did you look after yourself? The
Yeah.
focus is so much on the children and the parents, and it almost sometimes gets lost because we still have to remember these guys have got to look after themselves also, and
Yeah.
their well-being. Anastasia, what was it like for you looking after yourself?
Well, like the others have said, having that a good support system, family, friends, and colleagues, we all got together. We, talked. We kept constantly. We were in contact. So there wasn't a feeling of isolation, even though we had physically we were removed, but we still kept a good connection throughout the whole process. So it was a big transition in terms of having to come out of the classroom, but a lot of systems, a lot of things were in place already that kind of allowed us to have like a bump almost in the road, but still keep going.
Mm,
So personally, for me, being at home and away, that wasn't an issue. I'm a loner kind of a introverted person who likes to be alone. So a lot of time for reflection and a communing as well. I find out a lot about myself. I was able to expand my study, my Bible study, and everything like that. So, it to me, I embraced it. I
mm,
mean, it happened. I see it like an opportunity. It happened amidst something that's very devastating, and amidst all the negative and the death, and like just hearing the doom and gloom out there.
mm.
I saw a lot of good, the benefits that I got from it. It answered a lot of. I was like, like I was having a conversation today, and I was saying, God answers your prayers, but not exactly the way that you would expect. And I mean, it's like I don't want to be heartless, or unkind by saying that this answers some prayers for me, but it gave me like a space, like right in the Caribbean, like back in Barbados, you get a time a sabbatical. Here, we just keep working, and we have summer. There's no long leave, but this kind of gave me the opportunity to be in a more relaxed, less
Right.
stressful environment. And still is tough, but it was sort of like my sabbatical in a way that, and at one point I was telling my colleagues at work, I need a long leave. Why don't they have a long leave here? And
Long leave, man. I haven't heard that phrase for a long time.
Long time.
exactly. And this kind of gave me that. So for me, I'm more focused on the positives. I'm aware, and I try to help where I saw negatives or help my students. or other people to get through whatever difficulties that this has, brought up for them. But I'm more focused, and I think that has helped me a lot to put things in perspective, to not go crazy, having to be confined at home. I
Yeah.
was telling someone that just going to the supermarket, I try to go to the supermarket every 2 weeks, and it's like,
Mm.
hey, I'm doing voiceover today. But I think I've been able to like maintain my sanity throughout this very different time.
Okay,
Okay.
so that's good.
Excellent. Yeah.
And
Are we able to get Chanel in there?
yeah,
Brent?
Chanel is there. Chanel, are you there? Thank you for joining us. Chanel is from Trinidad.
Joining us from Trinidad.
Ooh, we're getting a bit of feedback there.
We're getting a bit of feedback there.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
That's all right. All right, we'll come back to you in a second.
Okay.
No, so that's interesting, guys. How to hear how you've been able to look after yourself and your networks and that kind of stuff. I think that's great. It's always important, as Mark was saying. Sometimes we focus on the kids, and rightfully so, and the parents and stuff who are dealing with something that they probably, most of the time the kids are out the house for quite a long time, and they're with you. Now all of a sudden, they were home with us, and it was like, whoa. Oh, I must say, I always respected teachers, but I must say I have a newfound respect for what you guys do and for what you go through as well. So I have a newfound respect for that. In terms then of, I don't think there's anything that could prepare anyone for this. This kind of came left field at the beginning of the year. But in terms then of some of the mechanisms and stuff you put in place, and perhaps Donna, we start with yourself. What were some of the stuff you put in place to try? I know you were saying at the beginning you didn't have a platform, so you had to do it from scratch. Did you lose a lot of time there? And once it got up and running, what was the reaction?
Well, for me personally, I have Edmund, so they had knowledge of it. Although I used it as a teaching tool, to get them involved in that platform. So I did that, and so it was easy for me to communicate with them as soon as the call was given for us to be out of school. So that was easy for me. But for my colleagues, we had to communicate what. Like, for example, I was using Edmodo, so I could have said to my colleagues on WhatsApp, I'm using Edmodo. This is what happens. This is how some children are familiar with it already. So some people ran with that. Then some people shared. Some people shared the Google. Some people shared the different things. In my school, they were very proactive. They pulled us together, and then they gave us the Zoom platform.
Right.
And that came excellently. They gave us training early. So we had our training from our school.
Right.
And our teachers were ready to move to the Zoom, and we got a lot of work done with our students on Zoom. Most of my colleagues at my school, we used the Zoom platform, and we covered a lot of work in that period of time.
And do you think that experience was similar across the rest of Grenada?
Yes, in some cases, yes, it would have been similar for most of the schools, and then there are other schools who have other platforms that they were using as well. But it was similar for most of the schools. It was a similar experience for most of the schools.
That's good. And Wayne, to yourself, just carrying on from that, in those platforms, access is always a question that comes up, and whether or not students have the laptops at home, or they might only have one at home but 3 kids of school age at home, and how that works. What were some of the things you saw in Lucia? And then I hear lots of stories of heroic teachers making sure that the kids were able to get the learning they need. Was that a big issue, access to the platforms and access to the work over this period? Wayne, you're on mute. There's something you got to remember to come on.
For our school, we had to create, we were using Google Classroom. So we decided to create the classrooms for the teachers. So as admin, we were able to have access in there. The good thing is that each student already had the school email address, so it makes it easier to get to them. Now, the issue was to get students into the classrooms. So once they were in there and get in there, we had problems with some of them accessing it using their phones.
And using your phone is so much different to using a tablet as opposed to using the computer.
Yeah.
Because on your cell phone, you have created your own password Google account already. So they had difficulties transferring from their Google account, personal Google account, to the school Google account. Some students had to be using their parents' phones. But before that, we had to do almost like a crash course, if you want to say, with the teachers to get them ready to use Google Classroom.
Yeah.
Some teachers were contacting some of the students in WhatsApp so that they could get them
Yeah.
onto the Google platform. So we did a quick survey of our students, and we found the number that couldn't access the platform. We had to prepare packages for them. So we decided to go with the core subjects, so maths, English, science, social studies, and health, or in England, they'll call it PSHE, just for their whole personal development. So we prepared those packages, and in the upper school, the students had to do all their core subjects and the electives, so we had to go that route. So we had to find a place for them to go and collect the packages, who's handling the packages. And then the fear was, okay, we give the students the packages. When they return it, what will happen? Because the fear of the corona, and some teachers were thinking, I will not correct it. I'm not sure where the students have been.
Oh, wow.
So, but at least they got some form of work to them. In the beginning, we had some students who actually were accessing, and then it dwindled off, teachers putting in the work. So we had a lot of challenges, internet challenges. So it was like Anastasia was saying, it gives us an avenue to reassess and look at the benefits from it. So come September, the things that we can do. So we had to put things in place, like try to source laptop for some of our students, source internet devices for those who had a phone and then they needed that device to get online. So we had to, I think it made us rethink about the education system and what we can offer, because online is the thing, and how we could do blended and reach all of the students. Persons might say some students, because we had some students that had the devices, had the internet connection, and they were just not interested. And how do you get them interested in doing the work? But all in all, it's a learning lesson, and we're looking to move from strength to strength. And Donna, like Donna was saying, like Edmodo is a good thing, because some teachers were using Edmodo, and it's for now of us to work from one platform, and you have greater monitoring and evaluation of what is going on.
And just going back on the survey, Wayne, I mean, were you surprised at the level of access to devices and access to the internet when those percentages came through? What did that look like?
Truth be told, it wasn't no surprise. We had a great portion of them who did not had so. And when we say access, sometimes, or the device, a phone, and their parents' phone, and you don't have data at times or the parents do not have data to put on the device so that the students can use it. So yes, having a device, but then no data. So it wasn't too surprising. It's something that we expected, but the greater focus at this point, at the point when this thing happened, was to try to reach as many and limit what you were doing, so that in terms of equity. Because especially some things like the foreign languages, we were saying it's a bit difficult to teach online or put things online doing the foreign languages. We had students preparing for Mr. CXC, the Great World CXC exams, CXC exam. And so we had teachers using Zoom and teaching, and we had persons battling for time to get the children interest. Because one of the things we did in the survey was to find out when they had access. Some had access in the morning, some had access in the evening, some had access all day. So at the school, we agreed to do, you put in the work on a Monday morning or Sunday evening,
Yeah.
and then you go back on a Friday or late Thursday and a Friday to give feedback and all of that. Because to cater for the students that have access morning, evening when their parents come from work and all of that, or who may have to go by the neighbors, you know, and all of those kinds of things. So,
Yeah.
So it's like
Exactly. So one of the things that as you were saying just now, that came to mind is that those who may not be self motivators might have felt this period very difficult. And, Andrew, I'm sure you've seen this. Whereas those who are, go-getters and who just want to, I don't want to use the phrase go-getters, but those who are a bit more self-motivated, have a bit more access and go find stuff out for themselves, might have thrived during this period. Did you see any of that? And how, what kind of things did you do to help? And what kind of things maybe did you help the parents to help the kids who are maybe not as motivated to, and so they don't become disconnected?
Thank you. Like Wayne said, there were issues with technology, but in terms of broadband, so I think you get some children and families who wanted to access and due to no fault of their own. Even sometimes myself, the broadband company that I'm with seemed to be struggling, and I think because there were just so many millions of families at home and educators at home all spiking at the same time, that caused difficulties. But I'm part of an academy, and then one school is an EdTech school, a demonstrator school. So then there were quizzes and there were assemblies and there were stories being read to children. And I noticed through YouTube and on Facebook, a lot of schools were doing that as well, just to try and engage. And then also, like Wayne said, providing laptop loans and also work packs for those with no online access at all. And we found with the quizzes that did engage quite a few children. I joined in some quizzes myself, because then you've got that competitive element as well. One thing I did just want to mention, I don't think it helped, and whether this was the same in the countries of my colleagues, the narrative that was put out by the media about a lot of teachers were just sitting at home, relaxing, watching Netflix, not really doing much. And nothing could be further from the truth, because I know with my colleagues and a lot of my friends who are teachers, we've all said the same. We've probably worked the hardest we've ever worked.
Yeah, exactly. And as a parent, and I must say, as a parent, I saw that from my daughter's who's in secondary school and my daughter's who is in primary school. I didn't feel as if the teachers weren't doing everything to try to engage them. We had one question here from Suzanne Downs, who's saying, her 6-year-old calls online school mock school. This is I gotta admit, it would have been me too. How did you, what can you do to help keep the children, to help get them settled down, and take the classes seriously? Anyone want to take that? Anastasia, any thoughts on that?
Well, for us here, Anastasia, go ahead.
I would say that was like my main concern, because unlike the others, resources and access to technology and platforms was not an issue. We had those already in school. We were working, using those on a daily basis. But when we transitioned to an online mode, it was a matter of accountability. Getting those students to show up, not fooling the parents that they're actually engaging in online classes, and keeping them there for the time. One of the things that I think we had as a part of our understanding of how we would operate online was we would only have 3 contact hours with our students. 3 contact hours during which we would do the content areas, the main content areas. And this is for elementary school. So getting them to actually be there at that time, it took a lot of working together. Like my colleagues and I, we shared a class because our classes, I did the reading language arts and he would do the math. So one of the things that we did was to teach together. So we would be in the same Zoom classroom together. We would be parents. We had class dojo. So we were constantly in contact with the parents and letting them be aware of what needed to be done and where the kids needed to be at what time. We even had a couple of students that the parents themselves found difficulty in getting them to actually get up out of bed and get on to class. So we would literally call and we would be like, given the phone. And then we had to like, listen, you get up and get on Zoom. So those are things that we had to do, you know, to like, get our students to keep showing up. But for the most part, because they were already aware of the use of the platform and they were already accustomed to working online, all of their textbooks were online. They're, even without Zoom, we could go in and assign assignments and activities and just keep it flowing because that was already there, that was already in place, you know. So in terms of having the resources, yes, they had it, but the accountability in terms of showing up, that's the issue. And to me, that will remain the issue as we continue because I don't think when school reopens that we might not be face to face. It's going to continue virtually because when you look here in Florida, you see that the cases are not, the cases of COVID are just rising and rising. That accountability, getting parents to make sure that the students are online. And then even in saying getting parents, a lot of these parents are out working, which introduces a whole different mix in there because they leave thinking, oh, when I leave, he's gonna get to class. But they're not. The students aren't. So I don't know how they're going to do that whole policing. It's not about teachers. I think the teachers showed up. The teachers were there, we were ready, and we were willing, and we did. But a lot of it is keeping that policing. You can't be thrown. You're at home. But how are you going to make sure that those students actually show up and stay interested?
Wow. You wanted to jump in there, Donna?
Yes, I was saying some similarities with Anastasia. We had at my institution, we had one contact person for most of for the students. So on a weekly basis, these information will go out to each of the classes, one representative, and they would have used WhatsApp to tell the parents, okay, the children will be on this time. This is the schedule for the week, and this is what is going to happen. So it was easy in that way. Parents had to do more at home, children ready to come to classes. We were there, and it was a challenge for most of us because sometimes you see a child this week and you don't see the child next week, and then you uncuff you unlock them, so you're wondering what happens to the child. You have to reach out to the form teacher. The form teacher has to reach out to the class rep. So you have to reach out to the parent, and it's that kind of back and forth. But we got it. We got through it. Yeah, but I think that we worked the hardest. I have worked the hardest I've ever worked during the COVID-19 period time. Because you have to manage home, you have to ensure that you get all your children in because you want them to be there. And it was a challenge in getting some of them. And then you have to get some of them ready for CXC and coming up right now. So it was really a challenge. You know, it was called for a lot of effort that we had to put in to get it done.
Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, I was going to go back to that point that no, you're absolutely right there, Donna. And I was going to go back to that point that Wayne mentioned earlier because there was something quite insightful about parents and children having to use their devices. You know, I think Anastasia mentioned that, you know, some parents would go off to work and expect their kids to log on. But in reality, in some places in the Caribbean, when parents go off to work, they're actually taking the device that the kids need to connect to the classroom with them. And that really perhaps started to show some real weaknesses. I wonder if you can comment on that, Wayne.
Yeah, because it's that's why we try to find out when they have access to the device. That was a very key question. So when we put in the work, then you're expecting something because I cannot. And one of the things we did not do this run was put in a timetable for teachers to actually going to teach, because it would have been a challenge, because no device I can access in the morning, I can access in the afternoon, and I can access whole day. So that's why we say put the work Monday, we come back and check Thursday evening into Friday and give you the feedback. So when you find that one device, and sometimes that one device is for more than one child and the parent,
Yes.
because that's the challenge, and then you have to kind of connect with the parents too, because we had like homeroom teachers WhatsApping or calling the parent to find out what is happening with the child, and then they'll explain to themselves, or sometimes they cannot go online because, hey, I lost my job. I'm in the hotel industry, I lost my job, so not every time I can put top up to get use and get data. So it has been
No,
rough
it is.
and revealing in a sense that
Yes.
what we do and how we do it, because we could say provide even that, to provide the children with internet service and they don't have the device, or provide them with the device, they don't have internet service.
Yeah, exactly.
And or it also indicated to us that what type of device that you get, because one guy sponsored 4 students and with a tablet, and you could do the typing on all the fancy thing on it, but it had a SIM card in it that you could just go and buy top up, so just in case you don't get left behind.
Connectivity at home. Yeah,
So
yeah.
sometimes it's the type of device that you get. So like I was saying, although it was a challenge, or it is challenging, but it gives you insight into what type of device. It's almost like my friend would say, it's almost like when you go into shop for a wife, it's all the specs that you want. So it's almost like the device is
I'm
almost
not
like
even gonna touch that
all
one.
the
I am not even touching that.
Wait, are you married? Is your wife careful? When
I leave
in the educational setting, yes, I am, Donna.
I'm not even gonna touch that one. But Donna, you touched on something earlier that is interesting, and I think it brought up about, kids, not just kids and learning, but kids and their well-being at home and the settings that they might be in, because it's easy to talk about this subject, sometimes assuming everyone is in a home that's conducive for them learning, and I'm sure you've all realized that that is not the case, and sometimes for many kids respite is school. For whatever they might be dealing with at home. Chanel, I see you joined us there just now, so that's good. Hopefully you can hear us. So I'm just wondering,
You can hear us.
we got a bit of feedback there from Chanel, but I'm just wondering, and maybe Andrea or Anastasia, you can take it.
A bit of feedback there from.
Yeah. So maybe you want to take it. Have you? I don't want to say have you seen this, but I mean, how were you able to help in that situation where it presented itself, and were you trained to spot it if necessary?
Well,
you go, Anastasia.
Well, here I know that our district put in place continuance of school meals, so children can get lunch and breakfast. So that's how they dealt with the problem of perhaps children depend on school. And in the school that I teach is a Title I school, this means that the majority of the student population depends on free or reduced lunch on a daily basis. So that was something that the district health put in place, where the students could go to school to pick up breakfast and lunch. And I think it's in some cases it has still been functioning even today. That there are some days when they can still go and get that meal. Um, in terms of, I know there have been reports of increase in violence, in homes, and that's something that has as a concern. But I haven't had to deal with that. I haven't encountered any student that seems, to be in danger for having to be at home. But in terms of at least providing them with a meal, I know that those provisions were made.
And we saw Mark Ray there say he's amazed at, how grateful and how grateful he is for, all the hard work that teachers have put in. So thanks for that,
Yeah.
Mark. Donna, you wanted to comment on that one?
I was saying that, I mean, in our case, at my institution, you know the students beforehand who are the ones that are needy and would be in the problems that that has thrown them into the COVID-19. So we had our care packages that we sent out to different homes. They had persons from our principals and so on. They went out and gave care packages with their form teachers to the students who needed it most. And there's just some teachers who, during the curfew time, and you get that hour to go to the supermarket, that 2 hours to go to the supermarket, will jump in their vehicle and say, I know this child is living in this area, I'm going to look for them. Physically drive to that area, even though if there is a little thing that themselves can get into the child. I know that there are teachers in our system in Grenada here who did that for their students. Just to get in touch with them, just to see them, just to be there to give them the support. Because as you rightly said, school sometimes is a safe haven for a lot of children. And then that was the problem. So when the children are out there, you know who these children are, and if you went out there to meet them and to give them something, just to see them see your face and just be there for them. And I knew that some teachers here did that.
Okay, Andrea said she also wanted to jump in on this one.
Thank you. In the UK, there was the voucher scheme. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out as successfully as hoped. So a lot of schools, the school that I work at being one, had to employ their own systems and provide support for parents. I know Wayne referred to job losses, and that was a reality for a lot of parents, either furloughed or lost their job totally, which then added additional stress and frustration into a already stressful situation. Making regular phone calls was really important because, as mentioned, you're so used to seeing pupils daily, and then to go from that to nothing at all, it was a real worry and a real concern. And I know just today I've seen billboards up saying that domestic violence has gone up. Initially I'd heard 20%, but they're saying in the UK is 49%. And when we get back to, new normal, September, that the amount of disclosures that are going to come out and the repair that's got to be done and all of the well-being. And I know in the UK, that's where the focus has got to be on well-being and mental health and PSHE for pupils and for staff as well, because this situation has just been so unprecedented and everybody's been affected in different ways, and no one can judge how somebody's reacted and how somebody else has been affected. And I know I was talking to a local minister in Bilston, and he was saying to me the amount of funerals that he's doing due to suicides, which is another issue. And then you've got the disproportionate effect on BME staff as well. And that was another worry if you're a BME teacher. Have you got your risk assessment? Is everything okay? So you're worrying about the pupils, you're worrying about the parents, but you're also in the back of your mind thinking, okay, I'm more at risk because I'm Black or I'm Asian or I'm Chinese. So that was a worry in itself as well. So it's been difficult.
No, I think that is a point that will probably linger on for some time. And the point on loss, I think it was UNICEF that I saw this week expressing some interest and some concern about children and the loss that they have gone through over the whole COVID season and how that is starting to affect them. And there's likely to be a change in role for teachers. Obviously you guys know I'm married to a teacher and I see the stress and strain, and yes, it has been a hard working season, but at the same time it feels to me as though teaching is changing. I wonder if it feels the same for you guys, and where do you see it going as part of this whole season of change that's coming at you? Who's that humming? Is that you, Anne? Go for it. It's changing.
Um,
It
um,
is changing. Who's going?
You go ahead,
It
Donna.
is
You go
changing.
ahead, Donna.
Listen, I'm here. We are officially on what we say our vacation. And I am thinking now, Lord, what is going to happen in September? How
Mm,
are we cope in September? Because we still have to adjust to the social distancing. You know how our classrooms are in the Caribbean.
mm,
And it's like to me, what are we going to do? How am I going to adjust to this new normal?
mm,
Yes, there isn't a playbook for it anyway, in nowhere. And we are still going with the flow, if you know what I mean. There is no set pattern. This is what we are going to do because we still have not even worked it out here as yet, and that is the problem. And for me, I am thinking, how are we going to cope? How are we going to get through the next period? But we just have to leave it and hope for the best. Really do hope for the best.
yeah.
Well, and I think yes, we have to hope for the best. But what do you see in terms of this change? And are you anticipating that there will be huge changes for you as a teacher moving ahead? And how do you think you can adjust to that?
Well, the changes that I see now in terms of our projection of what it would be like actually working in a building, in a physical school, like the smaller classroom sizes and the possibility of more students doing online and doing having that possibility to evolve into something becoming our norm where more students opt to have receive their education from elementary to where have you online. So, I mean, it will entail teachers doing more training in the use of online platforms, I guess. Um, it's gonna be strange, like even as I think about even even as I think about returning to school and what is that going to
Yeah.
be like for me, and my colleagues. I mean, I have colleagues who are like have different underlying conditions. So it's always it's to me it's like a battle of health versus wealth. Like I think there's going to be a more of an awareness. I'm glad it was reawakened that role that teachers do play because I think before we have always been marginalized as a working force, but the importance to the things like the economy, people are seeing more now, like what we provide for parents. We aren't just educating their children, but we offer that when they can go and earn money to sustain their family. So I think the role of teachers has really been brought to light because it has never changed. It's always been there, but people have tend to ignore it. And now we're going to be frontline workers basically. We are here observing on the TV and seeing the nurses and the doctors that they're working in the front lines. For me, I see if I go back into a physical building, now I'm a frontline worker.
Yeah.
So like those are different issues that I grapple with, and it would be just interesting to see how they play out as to what it will become. It's a work in progress. We have
Wow.
no clue.
Yeah, and I think this question here from Karen is pretty important because that's probably what I was going to ask as well. Is yes, we focus on mental health and what's not, but the longer this continues, if this goes into September and we're still at this stage, now I know a lot is said kids usually adapt and what's not, but we spoken about the inequity of access or inequity of having devices or internet access and what's not, and some people needed personal touch and some people school is a bit of a respite. But what do you think the academic consequences of a prolonged stage that we're at right now, if this prolongs, do you think it would have a huge academic consequences going forward?
I don't think it's anything that we can't recover from as a nation or as a world in itself. I think though that it has to be is like almost like a taking one for the team. because we all have to be healthy and well. But I know that there will be, I can see the huge economic impact. It's already having that on homes, all the way up to the state and governments and businesses. I see daily businesses going, losing employees and having to shut down, not making money. So it's going to have a long range impact in that.
Yeah,
I
and
think
that, sorry, go ahead, Andrea.
Sorry. I think as well, what it's highlighted is what actually is important, because in the UK, a lot of exams haven't been sat, A-level, GCSEs, secondary colleagues have had to do grading and banding. Primary, we didn't have the year 4 multiplication check, we didn't have year 6 SATs, we didn't have year 2 SATs. But it's highlighted what's important is that people are alive, people are safe, people are well, and in going back in, and although there'll be the bubbles and the social distancing at the moment, unless we get more guidelines, we've still got to look at the mental health and the well-being, and that's what's important, and the repairing, because I think for a lot of children and some staff as well, it has been like a bereavement. Loss has been suffered, because initially I myself thought, okay, probably after Easter or by Whitsun, we'll be back in, especially with the majority of pupils, and then that just didn't pan out at all. And to end the academic year as we have, and I know one of my colleagues said it, I think it was Donna, have we actually finished the academic year? Because normally there's been like parties and you're celebrating, lots of assemblies, and that hasn't happened in the same way. So even on Friday, I was saying to myself, okay, it's the end of term. Oh yeah, it's actually the end of the academic year as well, because it's just been so surreal. And I think it's really important that where we can give advice, and if we're asked in different forums as well, that educators are giving that message and about building resilience and repairing. And yes, we know in order to do certain jobs we need certain qualifications, but at this moment in time we need to be looking at how healthy, how is everybody, because when we're coming back in, we don't know what losses pupils will have suffered, staff will have suffered. You're going to get all this additional information, and you've got to be there to support. And I think any webinars, any training that as educators we can do to equip ourselves, that's really important. I know a lot has been free at the moment. I'm hoping that it continues even through the summer, that you can jump on different courses and networks and think, okay, that'll be really useful to utilize. Like I was reading, I did one session, and the psychologist, she was saying almost to hold like a 1 or 2 minute silence when everybody's back, to acknowledge the loss that has been suffered, and then moving forward, and like memory jars, and encouraging children to write or to draw, just to express their emotions. But I think the same for adults as well. You've got to express yourselves in, whether it's the arts or reading or drama, just having like what we're doing tonight, this forum, just to share, really.
Talk it out.
I think so. And Mark Ray, saw your comment there, had it up on the screen briefly. He was saying that in the Cayman Islands that the private sector really helped. Have you guys seen that? Have you felt the support coming externally as well?
To teachers,
just helping the system in general.
Just helping the system. You've seen a lot of people stepping forward and opening up to provide people, that lost their jobs. Had some very, very long lines. This is of the need, and the private sector and individuals, and I mean the community in general, have stepped forward to, to make up for where it exists. But if we can go back to the impact, the things like assessment, one of the things that really drives our education information down here is data that is collected because from those assessments, because we know it is used to determine how those students will go forward, how they'll be placed, what special classes. And one thing from this whole process is that usually, like in Barbados, we say stop down, where you get a year, but that's not going to happen. Everybody's going to go forward. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it will take a measure of consideration in terms of how we're going to, meet curriculum goals going forward,
Yeah.
knowing that we still have students who are at a deficit and really shouldn't be in a particular year. And that's just an example. But I think that all of our state tests have been put off, so we don't have a fresh set of data. So we've been mainly relying on year before's data to make decisions about these students, which could be, a benefit because we know that there'll be a huge gap that's missing. So
Yeah.
I mean, if we do things immediately, and it might benefit them. But personally, I just think that in light of everything and what we have to lose, and that's the loss of life, that as a world, let's just take a hit
Yeah.
and go forward and find a way to repair what the damage that has been done to the patient, as opposed to trying to push and go back to a norm that might just result in greater loss of life.
More deaf. Yeah, absolutely.
That's not what.
But I'm Anastasia with the that is guiding your, it's guiding the feedback in your area because you're not you're in Florida, and the data is guiding your what happens there, and you're using data from 2 years ago. I can see that posing a problem because you cannot weigh the the present data that we have now, that we would collect now, on the past data that we had before. That pose a bit of a challenge if you understand what I'm meaning.
I know what you mean.
Two different time frames, post COVID-19 and now pre, and it's two different times we are speaking about. How much of that data is being used to access or to anything? How many of that data is being used?
I didn't get your last question.
I'm saying how much of the past data that you are using to guide what will happen in a post COVID-19 period.
So basically, is it still relevant? Is what you're saying? What you're asking?
Yeah.
It's the only data that we're gonna have, because one of the things that happened is we had a program that would test our students, let's say at three data points. And the last data point of testing occurred while we were quarantined. That data, how can we trust that data when students took their last data point at home? With all the that we discussed before. So the only true data point that we have is when we were in a secure testing state.
True.
You can't throw that out. It's still represent, so, and it's just a matter, it's like how we're gonna have to adapt and how we're gonna go forward. You have to be cognizant of everything that has happened here, but we still need to there'll be a lot of remediation needed. And I think understanding in terms of our curriculum goals for the upcoming year, based on that remediation, are we going to still be expecting fifth grader to skip all that? Who has that big gap to still perform as a fifth grader should? So it's a lot of questions, and I hope that my curriculum specialist and my district answer those questions in a way that is for the benefit of the students.
And there will be a lot of. No, you go ahead.
Go ahead, Donna.
I just want to ask Mark Wayne one thing, because in sense Wayne in Wayne's system in St. Lucia and Grenada, we are similar in our curriculums and so on, and we tend to have this similarity there. Wayne, I want to ask you, we are now, what is happening in terms of the CXC exams that are presently happening now with our students? You notice that nothing basically have changed in terms of the exams is a bit later, right? Nothing in itself has changed in terms of the looking at the well-being, which is something that came up here, the well-being of students. We are vastly looking at getting a platform and training of teachers to teach in the new area come September. But the well-being of the teachers and the students are not taking place. Is that happening by you, Wayne? Wayne, you there? Wayne, unmute your
You're on
device.
mute there, Wayne.
I didn't get the last part too clearly.
I'm asking if you are seeing that. I'm saying that when I'm asking, are you seeing that the emphasis in your system is being placed on the well-being of students and well-being of teachers, or just getting a learning platform, training teachers in remote learning, and ensuring that friend has devices and so on? Are you seeing the well-being of teachers and the well-being of students come into play in your system?
Yeah.
I I'm 50-50 on this one in terms of the answer for this, because you find some administrators, they would look into that as opposed to, okay, this is what I want to happen in my school in terms of the teacher, the students, and taking that into consideration. Don't overload them and don't stress them out too much. But in terms of the power that be, when you get, so it's a trickle down. What it is that the Ministry of Education may want from you or of you. So for now, it's almost like putting things in place in the schools for the safety of all. So we have the situation where if you have underlying situations, because we did try the retrial of the Form 5s going back to school, right?
We
The
did the
Form
same
5
thing in
and the
Grenada
grade
as
6.
well.
And
We did the
what
same
was
thing in
said
Grenada.
that if you have underlying issues, and as an administrator, if you know a teacher has that underlying issue, why make the teacher come to the school? It doesn't make sense. So at my school, we did not do that.
Okay.
Because we know, I mean, the teacher have been teaching with you 5 years, 6 years, you know the teacher has asthma or she's prone to something. Now, as with the students as well, if you know, you took the precaution. Now, I'm not sure if it's happening for all of the schools, but based on the guidelines from the ministry, that's what should have been happening.
But
Now,
you said, Wayne. Go ahead.
okay, so I was saying
Good
now,
debate. I like it.
Yeah, man.
yeah. So and I want to speak of my school. So the counselor, our guidance counselor, had sessions with the teachers, though it was online, and opened up herself to both students and teachers if they need that additional support that they would need. But one guidance counselor, how many teachers, how many students? So it goes back to you knowing yourself, you knowing your well-being. So come September, it's almost like I know I have underlying issues. I have my medical report to support whatever it is. You know, sometimes I believe you need to safeguard yourself. And yes, the principle, no, but you have that safeguarding thing. Now, what can I do? So do I do my things online? Because there are some people you may find that have the underlying issues and don't want to do anything online to her. So but
You have those.
right. So what can I do? I have those issues, but what can I do? Maybe I can prepare some lessons online. And at that particular time, if the children are in school now, because when they're in school, you have greater control over them in a sense. Huh?
Yeah.
So at that particular time, maybe they can go into the IT lab and I'm teaching them from home, but they're in the IT lab. I'm ensure that they're there and they're doing what it is that they're supposed to be doing. So I want to plug in something there now. That's when maybe if you have corporate support and you have a little more devices, like a class set of computers, almost like when you had a class set of books
Yeah.
for a year group. So it's easy to share and use in the classroom, in the school in itself, so that you have greater control. But in addition to that, it's almost like you leaning on a friend. Your year group, your year person support, your admin really have to be supportive of you. put systems in place to help you. Because truth be told, for me, straight off the bat, you running the school. Yes, the ministry have whatever it is, but you have to make your staff comfortable. It's almost like you making.
Wayne,
She not
There's
having
two
that.
things
you don't
before you
understand.
interject.
You-
There's two things.
No, no,
I'm
that's not what I'm
expecting
saying.
my.
Once
No,
you
I'm
listen,
Hmm? No,
once
I'm
Go
you
ahead,
saying.
Donna.
Wayne, once you start in this conversation here, and you start including our ministries of education throughout the region into this conversation, we are looking at a whole new ball game because we
Yeah.
know what they look at. You're making a very strong point by saying you are running your school, but in some cases, my brother, we know what happens when these officials want what they want and they intend not to see the human being. And as you on that, when you look at these protocols that were sent out, and if you have underlying condition, and I check some staff rooms in my school or in my area, some teachers, it wouldn't have any teachers in school. Because every teacher I know in most schools, somebody have an underlying, more than 3 or 4 have an underlying condition, right? But what is important here, you see the teachers are knowing that they have an underlying condition, back pain, asthma, whatever, and they still will make the effort to go out there and get the job done, regardless of the
Yeah,
underlying
yeah,
condition.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what got me. That's what pains me. When you bring in this conversation, the Ministry of Education, because they don't know and they don't understand what teachers give on a daily basis, and even in this period.
Well, I guess you speaking in your context, but when I speak about my context. I, they provide. You know what I'm saying? They
I love
provide
it.
the protocols, right? Because some of us have to get the protocols from them. And Miss Donna, let's say I'm the administrator, and sometimes I tell you do A, B, C, and D in your classroom, and you go ahead and you do what you feel is best for your classroom, right?
Uh-huh.
You, Donna, I want you to answer that question.
For me,
Yes,
well,
you.
some of my, if some of my colleagues listening to this, they would say, Donna, she will do what she has to do for her students. And I would see the consequences. Once I can justify what I do in my classroom, there ain't nobody coming and tell me otherwise.
Exactly. So
Right.
that's why I'm saying. So sometimes the ministry will give you directives, but you as the administrator will do what is best for your students and your members of staff. So it's all what
Yes.
like you doing in your classroom, but it depends on that because some people freely, right? And they will not.
Everybody's going to be like, on the highway.
Listen,
So I want to. Sorry.
now go on, Ray. Go
So
ahead.
I was going to jump in here because
Yes.
so that's an interesting discussion. But that said, I think Gene Proverbs. I saw your comments a bit long, so I'm not going to put it on screen at the moment. But is this not? Let's think about looking ahead and looking forward. And we know that one of the things that we've really wanted to get people into is the technology side of things, is understanding different technology. But sometimes there was a bit of a barrier there. And we talked about people having access and what's not. But we also spoke about the fact that, in many cases that corporate society has helped and more children in some cases are getting access to tablets and laptops and what's not. That's one of the positive things that's come out of it, that they probably wouldn't have had in the past. Do you think potentially though that actually might have a positive effect and actually removing a couple barriers to people who may not have had a chance to get involved and interface with technology in a way that in the past they wouldn't have had to? But a positive that may come out of this season is that people have come in to help, and it has forced whether it be ministries or other partners to get involved and to get people the access that they need. And therefore, we might see some innovations, not just in teaching, but we might see, because of that access, students coming up with innovative ways of learning themselves and actually going into different areas of employment or in entrepreneurship that they may not have access to before. Is that possible, you think?
It's very possible, and that's why when I mentioned earlier when the persons donated, I'm saying is one of the things that will happen because remember when we speak to the 21st century skills that we're supposed to give the students and equip them with,
some of us as educators, we ourselves need to move
Media skills.
with the times.
We have
If you get what I mean, we need to move
Yeah.
along with the times.
Absolutely.
And don't be afraid of the technology.
Yeah.
And
True.
in using the technology, it's more far-reaching. Because I was saying to one friend of mine, because I travel a lot sometimes, and you have to leave the work for somebody to cover your classrooms. But with the technology now, I can be in one part of the world, and my class is going on, and I can log in and teach my class and move on. So that creates greater avenue in terms of, as administrators, sometimes you don't really need to get somebody to provide cover. Hey, Miss Donna is not in today, so she left some note on some teacher to be there in the classroom, but you set out the computers. Donna is teaching her Edmodo class, and it works wonders that way.
Yeah.
Additionally, too, I think when we could create greater avenues in terms of the work is online and children can work at their own pace, because in class sometimes we move, fortunately or unfortunately sometimes, with the children at a present and ready. But when the work is online, some children work at their own pace. You put it self-check. Somebody mentioned putting the stars. So when I get I complete a task, I can get a trophy, those online trophies and those kinds of things. So the scope is wide and far-reaching, but we must train our teachers. So come September, and in the week we have to come in before, train our teachers. And when our students get in, train our students. So we merge the gap. So we cannot say, I'm trained as a teacher and the children don't know how to get on. But the children can get on now because we spend at least 2 weeks training them. And Andrea mentioned something earlier, and in terms of the mental aspect of it too, spend some time, instead of going into the core of the curriculum but just spending time catching up with them, because I missed my students, so let's spend some time, let's catch up, what's going on at home, how can I help you, how can we assist each other, because their experience could make you even a better person, a better teacher, so you know how to even reach them even further. So I think spending time learning them to use the technology and spending time dealing with the mental and social aspect, and then the rest of things will fall into place.
I want to bring Andrea and Anastasia in on this point, actually, just on what you were referencing there, Wayne, about teachers and the shift and adjustment that teachers have to make. Because I from observation gather that this is huge. And I don't know if you guys feel the same, but it feels to me from the teachers that I have observed over the past couple of months, there is going to be a significant adjustment required on the part of teachers to get themselves to the place that is going to be relevant for this 21st century student that Wayne is talking about. What are your thoughts on that as an issue?
We haven't had the time that we'd normally have. Like normally, if there's a new initiative, it will build over a few months, or it might be said in June. Okay, this is going to come in January. So we've had to change our mindsets. And if I talk about myself, I was recording weekly assemblies that were being uploaded to the platform, and then by the end, I found I was embedding videos from YouTube and doing this and doing that. And don't get me wrong, I had to have technical support from the technician, digital lead at school, my husband as well, supporting me. But just in terms of the upskill, but I think linked to what Wayne was saying as well, is that it's opened up opportunities, because I know a lot of authors in the UK, they've done free streaming with their books, and also theatres as well have put on performances, and they're all free online. So in one respect, for some pupils and families who don't go to the theatre, they've had it just there at their fingertips that they can tune in. But I'm concerned during the 6 weeks holidays about opportunities, because I know we're still kind of easing out in the UK, and I've heard different reports about what we're going to be informed on figures. We won't be given so many updates at the moment. But just in terms of, normally there'll be lots of sporting activities and different play schemes that children can access, and I'm hearing all around that they will not be available for the pupils, and I think that's really difficult, because I noticed one person had commented about, you know, what is there for pupils and just different families that you are looking at, because, you know, for some families, if there's been lots of shielding going on, then they haven't left home since the end of March, and that's just a really, really long time. And I think normally in the summer, like Mark, you're referring to about, you know, you go out and about and you think, okay, shall we? And even I myself am thinking, okay, you know, I'd like to kind of go here, but then you're feeling tentative. And at the moment, I'm kind of feeling I'll just spend more time in the garden, just safe in my own kind of little bubble there.
Yes.
So I think there's a lot to be explored, and it's just everyone's got to change their mindset. And somebody else mentioned about it being a revolution, and I think it is a revolution, and education is being revolutionized, and some things that we used to do face to face, we will now do via Teams or via Zoom or via all the different platforms. And you know, the fact that we're here conversing now and we're in all different countries, that just messes with my mind as well, and I can hear you all perfectly clear, you know. So I think there are the positives, not just all the negatives. There are positives as well.
And I'll come back to that point about the connection. But Anastasia, on the same point about the upskill and the step up for teachers, what are your views on that?
Definitely it would require you. I mean, there's a lot of fear. I know a lot of teachers have a lot of fear when it comes to technology. And here, like I said, we have a lot of access to technology and virtual learning platforms. But I think before, a lot of people weren't taking advantage of them. But this situation kind of forced you to have to, you know, like having to give assignments and have the students answer those assignments and turn them in online, because like you said, or was it Donna? I can't remember. You don't know where those papers. There's no more pencil and paper worksheets. You need to be able to get those things completed online, and it benefits when you have platforms that will actually correct the assignment for you. That's good too. But in order to use those things, a lot of fear. I think that's going to be one of the biggest hurdles for teachers who shy away from using technology. Like I said, fortunately for me, my experience has been technology has been interwoven over the years. So transitioning now to virtual learning, it's not hard. We are always provided with training. Mind you, the training is very fleeting. It can be very fast. And there's a lot that comes at you in a short space of time, and you have to get adjusted. And Angela says, you know, like, there are things you can do, you know, people that you can ask, and there's always support. And that's one of the things that I have to say about our training, is that it doesn't leave you at a loss. There's always support. Even with the people who develop the platforms, you can always reach out to them, and you can. But in the teacher, you have to equip yourself with that kind of motivation to get out there and to dabble. Don't be afraid. And I think fear is one of the greatest things when it comes to technology, that everyone is, oh, I don't know, can I touch it? What will happen if it disappears, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Bringing that fear, bringing that feeling and exploring. Because a lot of these programs are very
interactive.
They're programs that you can literally teach yourself how to navigate through them. And teachers just have to be willing more. There's going to be a greater level, you know, needed to do that in order to proceed, because technology is here to stay. Look, it saved our lives, basically, you know, in being able to continue teaching amidst this whole quarantine and self-isolation. Without technology, I mean, what would have happened? Nothing.
Wow. And we've had a comment there from Chanel. And again, apologies to our audience this evening that one of our guests is having some technology issues.
Yeah.
But, you know, she's very much in this space. And I really wanted to have Chanel in this conversation because one of the things that I've noticed over the course of the lockdown, she has been doing a lot of tremendous work on Facebook to encourage parents. And I think she spotted very early that that was an area that was going to require a lot of input from teachers. And she did quite a lot of encouragement of parents across Facebook, which I was watching and thought was really, really very helpful. I want to drop back to Wayne's point about the ministry because I'm not going to let this one slide, right? And I'll tell you why. Now listen, most people are going into their summer holidays. We've now got 3 months behind us of understanding what the response was like during the first wave of COVID in most places. So you would think that there should be some rapid planning happening somewhere in preparation for September. Because it is going to swing around fairly quickly and we can't start on the back foot. What are the responsibilities you think of ministries and senior leaders now as we go into this pause before we go again? Let me start with you, Donna, because I know you're going to probably want to jump in on this quite quickly. we can't hear you.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. In my area, we have a lot of training in the different platforms and support. And just last week, from the 8th to the 16th, our Ministry of Education did a massive training on their school program that have introduced to most all of the schools in Grenada. So they had teachers who were trained in using that platform. So that should be a platform that is given by the Ministry of Education and other persons, and people schools are on it, and people have been trained. And I think in each school there are somebody in the school who are trained to assist the other teachers in that regard. So they're doing some rapid and quick, but there are some things that are taking place slowly, but it's taking place.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And Wayne, yourself, the responsibility of the ministries now as we go into this summer holiday and reflecting on how are we going to respond more effectively come September?
Well, the responsibility is to provide as far as I see, to provide the protocols and guidelines as to how we should move forward. But I can see from our end, we have been directed to put plans in place and using the protocols of the 6 foot or the 3 foot distancing. So, for example, how is it that schooling will continue? Are you going to use a rotation basis? Are you going to use rotation with the blended? Are you going to use the shift system? If some of you old enough in here to know about the shift system, where one set of students come in the morning and another set come in the afternoon. So those are, and it has to be, so let me say the shift system would be, let's say Form 1s and Form 2s, year 7 and 8, would do 8 to 12, and then you have the 9s to 11 would do, say 12:30 to 4 o'clock, 4:40. So everybody has 4 hours. So of that face-to-face connection, but then you could still put some of the work online using the blended method. Just to cater for the persons that would the internet issues or they may not have the devices. Because if I do rotation, you come in on a Monday, you come in Wednesday and a Friday, and then the Tuesday and the Thursday you're supposed to do work online. And you don't have that device. Maybe I'll have to prepare you, give you a package or work assignment to do at home, following the same timetable. So that's some of the things that the talk. But each situation would be unique to the school. Also, you'll have to put in the number of sinks for students to wash their hands, the signs. So you walk to your left, you walk to your right, you use those steps, wear your mask and all of those things. So coming from the ministry protocols and guidelines, you as a school now have to put in your protocols and guidelines to dictate what happens to your school.
Interesting,
Okay.
interesting. Look, Mark, you wanted to ask another
No,
question?
you go ahead, Ray. Go ahead.
I was going to say, look, for, guys, we can go on this topic, I think, for quite a while, to be honest with you. I want to say thank you, and thank you for everyone who's joined us as well. We saw your comments. Obviously, we can put all of them in the show, but we saw the comments of you trying to weave them into the conversation, as we went on. But even as we look to wrap up here, if we can look ahead, let's assume we got control of COVID, what's not we say, back to school education going forward. And I want to probably ask Andrea and Anastasia, in your view, education post-COVID, what's the future that you see? What do you think? Based on the experiences of before COVID, the COVID season, what is it that you see in the future going forward? Anastasia, probably start with yourself.
Well, in the future, I see us all back in school. I really do, because personally, I think that face-to-face teaching, I like it. That's my preference. And that's what I hope it would be. But I also see enhancement. I think technological enhancement that kind of becomes or makes education more inclusive,
Mhm.
especially for those students who might learn better via that modality.
Yeah.
So I see being in the classroom with my students and using more technology and challenging them to become more, used to working with technology, because we've seen how the role that it has played right now.
Mhm.
And like one mentioned 21st century learning, I don't really see it as 21st. It's like no, it's a no. And I would hope in the Caribbean, I know that that's the mindset that we have here. Technology is infused in education here, but I would hope that in the Caribbean, that the government ministries would learn from this the need to invest the money, to
Mhm.
our schools, from primary school all the way up to secondary school, with the technology that taught to those students, the tablets, the tablet taught to the students, the teachers, you
Mhm.
know, smart boards in class. Those are things that I would love to see happen as a result of this. That's how I envision education, where the students, where anything like this happens, it's just a transition. You're just working from home, but you're accustomed because you've had access already. We're training, we're teaching, teachers are learning, and students are learning how to incorporate and use technology to for the goal of school
Hmm.
achievement.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Do you think with technology, just a devil's advocate, do you think someone has spotted potentially increased AI in learning going
Well,
forward?
it's begun. I mean, there's so many platforms that don't even require the teacher, that literally walks children through concepts, and children can learn without a concept without the teacher. So,
Hmm.
I mean, AI, well, we could be at home. I don't know. Would they pay the AI?
Well, the thing is that this is thrust so much upon people so quickly that and there are always people looking for opportunities, and not just when I say, I don't want to say that everyone is kind of opportunistic in a negative way, but looking at it even in a positive way of knowing not all kids like the classroom setting. Some kids are actually thriving in this setting where they're at home and they can kind of manage their own days, and just do the stuff that they need to do. So artificial intelligence going forward in the classroom, but virtual, potentially. You never
I
know.
mean, I've seen kids blossom during virtual learning. Kids that were failing grades are passing, and I believe on merit. Because they're always the person in the background that you can't see helping them. But some students have really flourished
Hmm.
from, and I think it will help those. And if we could have AI that enhances education, fine, as long as it does not remove the human factor, because teachers, the human teacher will always be a necessity.
Hmm.
Sure.
Okay. Andrea, any thoughts on that?
I think there'll be more development with the sharing of good practices school to school, whether schools are within a federation or I know colleagues are referred to districts as well. And I think Wayne referred to blended learning earlier. So I think it will be looking at, okay, we've got this to do. What is the best way to do it? Is it technology or is it not technology? As mentioned, I think it was Anastasia who said technology is here to stay. But I know in the comments, I think it was Michelle who referred to children's different learning styles. And one point is that some children have not enjoyed the online learning. So they might have had the internet and had the devices. But I know I spoke to one of my friends and her son is 7. And she said he just does not like the online. So although it was provided, she was printing it all off. So I think that's a factor that's got to be taken into account. And I think as educators, even ourselves, you know, thinking about our posture and even screen time with your eyes as well, because as we've mentioned about the fact that teachers were working harder than ever, some days like it was 8 till 8 and I was even forgetting, like thinking like, oh, did I stop for lunch and did I stop for this, because you weren't having those natural breaks with a bell ringing to say, okay, it's playtime and it's lunchtime. So I think with technology, it is great and you know we've developed in some ways, but also we've got to remember that as humans we do have fallacies and we've got to look after, it's that well-being again, we've got to look after ourselves, because if we aren't any use to ourselves, then we're no good to our pupils.
No, I agree. An interesting point you said there about the times you were working, because something that, you know, I was conscious of, but it took a while to realize what was happening, is that I was very conscious of my younger daughter, especially what time she submitted her work at the time of day. Because if we forgot and submitted it at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and then teachers were also tasked to give feedback before the next day, then that meant that I was actually making someone have to work to 8, 9 o'clock to review my. So you're right there, and I hear you there. And parents need to take some of that on as well and understand that understanding.
I want to throw
can I just add? I think teachers just naturally we don't switch off. So if there's a discussion or a child asks a question. I know some of my colleagues and myself, you'd see something on a Saturday or Sunday, you wouldn't think, okay, I'll leave it till Monday. You just naturally just respond to them. And I think there's a saying, once a teacher, always a teacher. It's ingrained. It's ingrained in you.
Yeah, I like Chanel's comment here about the individual way that education will need to be targeted and focused post-COVID. And I think that's going to be very, very important for teachers. And you're right, Andrea. You know, it's a hazard to your health. Because and the reality is that is part of the issue why teachers struggle to upskill sometimes, because they don't have the capacity to do everything that's required, but still make time to also become technologically enabled and see what's coming at them in the future. It's a very, very difficult balance in that. So I've got a lot of respect for you. Listen, I would just like to say I think we need to link you guys together, because
I agree.
This is a conversation I think that needs to go on beyond the living room.
Yeah.
To keep the UK, the US, and the OECS talking.
Agree.
I think there could be some mutual benefit that could be derived from you guys continuing the conversation between yourselves.
I agree with that. And even before we go, I just wanted to, so not all the teachers, not everyone in the audience were focused only on the children you were teaching. But, you know, Maria had asked earlier on, we didn't get to it, but, you know, the audience are thinking of you as well. I don't know how many you have kids, but in all this, how did you find time to make sure your own kids were keeping up as well?
Wow, I tell you, that was something for me, because my son is 9, and simultaneously he's on one laptop on a Zoom class, and I'm across on a Zoom class, and then he has all these assignments coming in, and I have to give him my kids assignments, and then I have to be making sure that he gets his thing on time. So it was a struggle, and I was like, wow, well, I can understand why the parents are complaining, because here I am, a teacher, and it's hard for me.
Yes.
It's hard for me. My one. So imagine the parents that have multiple.
Yeah.
So it is a struggle. It involves balance, you know, and a lot of flexibility and understanding on both parts. Because that's one of the things for me that came out of all of this and instructing my kids, I understood. I understood, hey, I'm coming into your home. You didn't invite me in, but I have to be there. So if I see your mom giving you a spoonful of food and
Hmm.
while I'm teaching, I'm not gonna freak out.
That might
You
have
know,
been one of these the easier things to see in the home. I think
exactly. I know.
I've heard some stories.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
But this teaches a level of flexibility and understanding of what's going on, and I think it's trying to consider each other's parent
yeah.
feels as well as how a teacher feels. Then it increases an understanding across the board, and I think it can only work better, help things
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think so. Look, guys, thank you so much for taking time. You know, as we talked about just now, how busy you guys were and are. I hope you guys have a break over the summer holidays as much as you can. Get some rest, get some sleep, revive yourself and what's not. Because I must say, you've always deserved it, but definitely throughout this period, you've definitely more than deserve it for the work that you guys have put in. So thank you, and thank you for taking the time out of your Sunday to join us and to share with our audience as well your experiences, your thoughts, and your expertise as well. So I really want to thank you guys for that. Anything to add, Mark?
No, thank you so much. It's been fantastic to have you and to listen to you and to also hear how you're navigating the season. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for having us.
No,
Thanks for having us.
anytime. But as Mark said, we're gonna link you guys together so we can continue the conversation.
Yes.
And you too, Mark Ray. We saw your comment there in Cayman Islands. We'll link you two with the guys as well. All right, thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was a good conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoy that because it just shows you that the triangle is still there. The home, the student, the teacher. It all still needs to come together and even during a crisis. And I feel we perhaps and the topic that really kind of struck me was this whole question of well-being. Because there's I said teaching is a hazard, and to be honest, I guess I see it firsthand. You can't switch off, and COVID has kind of opened up that a lot more.
No, I think so. And, and as I was saying, I got such a huge respect for what teachers go through. And I think with the kids being at home, you saw it more. I mean, I think we always knew it, but you saw it even more with the kids being at home, you helping them, the feedback, the amount of messages, because my account was linked as well. So the amount of messages have come through and the amount of messages of encouragement. And I thought what Maria had asked there at the end was, hopefully the teachers were finding time to also help their own kids through it also.
Yeah, and you can tell that it was a strain, and it really required some solid discipline and balance. And I think that will probably continue. And I think the question that you ask about where you go, in a post-COVID world is a very important one, because I think teaching will start to look very differently, and perhaps rightfully so. Taking the positives from COVID and blending that with some of the historical approaches that have worked solidly, I think is probably where it will end up.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm always thinking about as well is the gap. We always talk about the gap of, high achievers versus those that you got to help along, and sometimes, not in all cases, but sometimes that is correlated to the home, and correlated to maybe the level of achievement or the area of work that the parents at home are. And as the guys were talking, and we talk about access to either devices or to the internet and what's not, sometimes that will have a bear on the development of some students, and hopefully we don't see a case where those who have all the access and were able to and come from a household that's going to push that along, and those who weren't. I hope we don't see that gap widen, and we find a way to still bring that gap closer together.
Yeah, I think there will need to be a much greater return to the spirit of community, particularly in the Caribbean, moving forward. Because if we do suffer a lot of job losses in this coming autumn, in the new school year, and those parents who have devices who are potentially going to be unemployed and then can't have data plans that their kids can access the internet, you then have this whole cycle of well, how does education continue to be delivered in if there's still a a COVID presence? There's a real issue there of how we can plan this. But I think our history around being strong communities holds some of the key to helping us to be able to overcome some of the challenges around the technology and some of the issues that we will likely face.
I completely agree. Look, everybody, thank you. I'm going to get to some of the comments here now. Wilfred, I saw your comment there, and I think that's really important as well. To you parents out there, thank you, kids, as well, for understanding the period that we are going through. I can tell you, I had an 11-year-old that after a while, she was just bored to tears, and she was missing her friends and everyone. But then we spoke, and she understood. She got to go to school at the end and see everyone, but she understood. So I think the kids are very important here as well. So thank them. I saw Pep answer this, Mark.
He in the kitchen cooking. Big roast today that just didn't get finished, I suppose.
Easy. So you decided to cook it and eat it at the same time too? Hey.
On a serious note, this has been a great conversation because Phil always brings the education angle into our conversations, and he would have been delighted with.
No, I agree. I'm sure when he watches back, he'll be really annoyed that he had to miss today, but it was unavoidable. But Phil, rest assured, Phil will be back with us again next week as well. So don't fear. Phil will be here. I don't know if they mean that we weren't enough or.
Well, he has his fans, so
I can try not to take it personal.
No, I won't.
Yeah.
Everybody always asks, "Where's Philip?"
Not that I'm begging for any attention or anything like that, but just saying. Look, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. As usual, this has been the living room. It's been this time, Mark and myself. And Philip in spirit, I know he's been willing on. He was part of the preparation for today as well, though he couldn't make it. And I really hope you enjoyed the conversation. There's so many conversations across the Caribbean that we need to have. And we're going to be having tons and tons of them over the coming weeks, months, and hopefully years to come. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining us. Anything, Mark?
Thank you so much. This has been another fantastic evening in the living room. And remember, if you haven't yet connected to us across our social media channels, please do so on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a follow.
Thank you. Look, thank you for joining us. Until next time. Oh, that was good.
Yeah, man. Feeling heroes, huh?
Good fun.
Yep.